So the A minor and the G were still in the same key, which rhymes. That's cool. How do you self-accompany on the guitar? Play chords and then soloing. What are the ways that you can use it in your practice, and how can you get jamming with it? Let's dive in and take a look. So self-accompanying on the guitar is really, really important, and I think it's one of the overlooked soloing practices that kind of people learn their scales and they learn their chords and they think of them as two separate things, but being able to self-accompany is a great way to make hours disappear on your guitar in practice, and it's a really good way to start viewing your guitar because it helps with soloing a lot. So first of all, what is self-accompanying? Well, it's being able to play chords and then play melodies that fit over those chords. So there's a few different levels that I consider of self-accompanying, and we're going to go through them today. So level 1 of self-accompanying, or one type of practice, because you can expand these out and make them more difficult too, but level 1 type of practice is playing one chord and then practicing all the different things that you could do over that chord. So say I take a static A minor chord, and I'm just going to imagine that that's my only chord I'm coming back to, and in between every phrase, or every few phrases, I'm going to come back and hear that A minor chord. So I could practice my pentatonics over this. I could practice, instead of pentatonics, I could look at my full major scale, still with that one static chord. So this level 1, it's really about taking any static chord and building up vocabulary for what you could play over that static chord. And of course we can shift that through in any key, so I could play and practice that in A minor, but then let's move to D minor and try and practice the same thing, the same kinds of content. So no matter what chord comes up, what key we're in, we're comfortable with those pentatonics over a static chord at this point. So if D minor comes up, so getting comfortable, and it can be really, really slow. And in fact, sometimes I encourage students to get rid of timing altogether with this kind of self-accompany practice and just play the chord and then move to whatever you're practicing. So that your brain has time to think over one chord. And I think sometimes in soloing, if you're copying other people's solos all the time, you can get this illusion that you need to be playing at that level all the time. And even sometimes when your fingers can play at the level of a solo that's very famous, your brain isn't able to think at that level yet that kind of made the person able to create that solo in the first place. And whether that's thinking, or whether your ear isn't able yet to really understand and synthesize the ideas through the guitar, you have to slow down and practice some of this stuff slowly to allow your brain to think and your ear to do some of the work and really sit on that static chord. So one caveat about level 1 is, right now I've only talked about A minor chords. Obviously we should do the same thing over major chords. So if I take an F major chord, I can practice playing F major pentatonic over this, or anything that would fit an F major chord. So my full scale, my arpeggios. So I could practice any of the licks that I've learned that fit over major chords over that, perfect. The same with diminished chords. And so you start with one chord, and I would start with minor chords because you get the minor pentatonic to play over them, and then you expand out and go, okay, what can I play over a major chord? What could I play over a major 7 chord or a dominant 7 chord? And that's how you start building these kind of buckets of vocabulary in your guitar playing and getting them as a bit of a reflex and making them easier in your self-accompany practice. Now, Level 2 with this is you start combining a couple of chords into a chord progression. And so say if I took A minor and G. Now I could take both those chords and I could think of them both separately, but I could also go, I've got A minor and G. I could actually play the A minor pentatonic licks over both of them because they're both from the key of A minor. So there's my two chords. So I'm going to play one chord. Back to the G. So we're combining chords at this point, whether it's 2 or 4 or anything, into chords which are in the same key. So I could play my pentatonic scale or my full scale of A minor and practice that over a chord progression that's moving, but I'm in control of every single one of those chords. And I'm going back to them and having to think, and your hands getting in and out of position. That's one of the big benefits here, is your hands having to move into position to solo and out of position, which really helps with when it comes to actually hitting a solo, even not self-accompanying. If you're in a band, often it's those first few notes that can really dictate how that solo feels. And I think if someone sounds like they're nervous or rushed in the first notes of their solo, it's probably the whole solo is going to feel like it's nervous and rushed. So that's level number 2, what we call diatonic, or in the key of chords. So anything in the key of A minor would work there. If you're unsure what chords are in what keys, you can look it up, or you can look at one of my other videos about that too. Okay? Now, level number 3 is random chords. We're following the chords now. So not necessarily random chords, just chord progressions where you're not necessarily thinking about, oh, I'm staying in one key. We're going to follow each of those chords to try and play something that's appropriate for that chord. So going back to level 1, we practiced lots of static chords for long periods of time. They were in one chord for long. Now we're going to do a chord progression where it's changing and we're having to change chord with our chord progression. So for example, I could do A minor to G, but when I play on the G, I'm actually going to play phrases which fit a G chord. So this one's going to sound quite different. When I play over A minor, you're going to hear notes which sound good over A minor. And when I play over G, you're going to hear notes which sound good over G. Let's hear some examples. So the A minor and the G were still in the same key, which rhymes. That's cool. But when we're moving on to this level 3 exercise, we could do any collection of chords. As long as you want to play over those chords, it's great practice. And you could do some horrible combinations of chords, but you could also do some pretty cool combinations of chords which aren't necessarily in the same key. So if I take A minor and G, and then I also have D major and F, the D major's out of key. Let's hear what that sounds like. So I think that's a cool sounding chord progression, and I'm going to treat each one as its own little thing to play over as I go. So. So following the chords, aware of what chord we're on, and then playing a lick with them. If you've done level 1 a lot, level 3 becomes easier. And obviously level 2 is important too, but it really is a whole kind of system to build up within your mind and your playing, and take your time with it. I think this is probably one of the most valuable things you can do for slow improvisation practice and actually understanding your fretboard and being able to listen to your fretboard at the same time. I hope you found this useful. If you got something out of the session, leave me a like and hit subscribe, please. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers at the moment, and I would really appreciate your help as I go. I'll see you soon. I do sessions every Thursday and Saturday, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye.